Alright, this is going to be a weekly recap from the 21st of June to the 24th. There was no trading on the 20th, and I think to best go over how this week went is to actually look at my calendar here instead of seeing all the crazy amount of trades I had this weekend. I think the numbers they lined up pretty nicely. As you can see, I was down $3 on the first day, down 90 pennies on the second one, and then this day I made back the $3.90 perfectly. And then what ended up making this week was this last day of trading. There were a few setups that were super profitable that I didn't take, or stuff that I was on the right track but didn't work out when I was in. There was a lot of room for opportunity to be much more profitable, but overall, this is what I ended up being for this week. And I did have a crazy amount of trades, 17, but a lot of them was right here trying to trade TXTM and perhaps not trading it the best that I could have. I made a pretty good video, I think, just going over my thoughts on trading a stock like TXTM on this particular day when it had a very crazy tsunami panic, and I think it was down over 50% on the day. And the stats, they're actually not as bad as what I thought it was going to be. My winning percentage was just above 50%. 68% of my trades were according to my dollar risk level, which is good. My average dollar gain still ended up being larger than my average dollar loss. And my average percent gain was just slightly higher than my average percent loss. There was one trade where I didn't include in the stats because this was a speculative trade and I traded just a $6 position. It was so tiny, I just wanted to practice. It wasn't necessarily something I wanted to commit all my money into. I just wanted to learn from trading it, even if it's a small amount. And my average position size was just $1 off. So it was basically all of this was pretty close to each other. As I said, there is a difference here. The average dollar gain time in a trade, I was in the setups that worked out twice as long compared to a setup that didn't work out. And it's nice to see that at least on average it's a number 6 minutes and 45 seconds much larger than what I have been normally holding setups. So I hope I can continue to work towards that. That's something I've been trying to do better, giving setups a chance to work out. I feel like I've been cutting some of the trades too quickly, and what I'm trying to do right now is selling in two pieces at least. So let's go ahead and go over the trades one by one, starting with GEGI, which is a bull flag dip under VWAP setup. Let's look at GEGI for the 21st. 21st is going to be right here. So it looks like the second day, and at some point it was a gap up off of this first green day. It had nice volume, but as you can see, it kind of sold off, and it did pretty much lose its momentum and downtrend. But if this thing tries to consolidate and then maybe try to break the 68 sub penny level, this could be a setup in the future. Let's look at the 21st, which is right here. I was in at 9:55 a.m. at 57. So let me just zoom in a bit more. 9:55 was right here at 57. I was in right here. And why did I get in it? Once again, it was a dip under VWAP right here, and it started to come back, and I was in it at this point right here. And just to be completely sure, it was a bull flag setup. So I essentially saw this where it had a nice spike. It started the downtrend, and then the bottom of the potential bull flag was roughly this VWAP level. And again, I was in it right here. And I was thinking that, it probably broke the line of the bull flag towards the upside, and now I can potentially try to make a move higher. And as you can see, it had one more panic, but it eventually did do what I wanted it to do. It uptrended and got as high as 68, but as you can see, it did not work out here. I got out at 10 o'clock at 56. So right here at 10 o'clock, I was out at 56, and I was in it right here at 9:57 at 57. It just didn't work out. I probably didn't like the price action and the way it was trading. I did a good call, I think, because the setup did work. It just had this one more blip right there. And I mean, as for a bull flag immediately working, it didn't do it, but it did make a move towards the upside. So I think I was on the right track. But this one clearly didn't work out, and I lost just a tiny amount just trying that setup right there. with the proper amount of size because it's equal to a $21 risk level. Let's look at the next trade, which is going to be the same stock on the same day, but this is going to be a inverse head and shoulders, second higher low towards high of day breakout. I was in at 1040 at 58. So 1040 was right here at 58. Was in it right here at 58. So the idea is that we have the inverse head and shoulders, the shoulder, the head, and the shoulder, and then I'm in right here at the second higher low, this being higher than this level, which was the shoulder of the inverse head and shoulders. And then I was thinking it could try to break the resistance level, which is 60, and then ideally it could try to get to the highs, which is 63, and then get much higher. I mean, you can see it worked out. This is actually more closer to what it ended up doing, comparing it to the previous trade, which was the bull flag. But as you can see, it did do it eventually. It just took a really long time. It definitely got lower than what I was considering here to be a higher low. And I guess it's because of the fact that it also doesn't have very much volume here. So that likely did not help it. I was in at 1040 at 58. Just to go over that one more time. Right here. I was in it at 58 at this point right here. And I did get out at 1046.57. So 1046 was right here. I got out at 57. I probably didn't like the price action, which is not a huge surprise because it just didn't have any volume. It did get lower. It did get as low as 55, but it did come back and try again later. The volume did come back, but I think I was on the right track with this one, and maybe I could have tried it one more time when it was trading back and forth here, and it finally breaks this 60 level, and then that was a nice move to 68, which, I mean, I guess it was around 10%. It could have been better, but it wasn't horrible. It was the second, green day at the time, and while it did, downtrend much more, as you can see, this was around the 68. It could have had more potential. So I think that was a good attempt for what that was. Let's look at the next setup, which is GEGI again. All right, so I traded it 3 times on the same day. Let's look at GEGI on the 21st again, so I'll just zoom back. I didn't know I traded this one 3 times. I'm at the point of the week where I don't really remember any of these trades until I start to look at the charts. I was in at 1132 at 61. Okay, so did I actually trade the thing? Alright, I actually did trade the thing. Okay, I just assumed I didn't actually trade it. Okay. I was in it right here at, let me just be sure, 1132 at 61. That's right. So 1132 was right here when I got in at 61. I actually traded the thing I just went over. I'm not trying to sound smart. It's just that I honestly didn't remember, this trade. I still don't actually remember it right now, but let's take a look at it. I got out at 1135 at 62. So I didn't hold on to it very long. Right here I got out at 62, and let's just go over the notes and see what happened here. I was out of the setup not as well as I would like. Okay. All right, so I could have, yeah, I didn't sell in 2 pieces here. What happened is that I got in the setup at 61, and then I got out a few minutes later because I got scared because a big seller showed up at the ask. And I didn't sell in 2 pieces, which has been something that I've been trying to do, because obviously if I sold in 2 pieces here, I could have given myself a chance, an opportunity to maybe sell this thing for at a higher price and be more profitable, or at least feel better about the setup. But yeah, I could have tried to have sold it maybe in 2 pieces. Maybe I could have sold half when it was at that point right there with that 4 million share seller, and then maybe I could have sold the other half right here when it breaks the trend line. Or maybe I could have drawn maybe like a better trend line. Maybe instead of this one, I could have drawn something like maybe off of this low right here. I kind of play it off of these candles. And then that would have given me more time and I would have been more profitable there. But whether I would have sold at the same price using the trend line right here, or maybe this one and maybe try to sell better, I do need to try selling in two pieces, and I just got scared probably that that big seller showed up at the ask and it's just gonna fall off a cliff, which doesn't really happen. That's just something that I'm getting over with. But I think that was a pretty cool attempt that I even tried this anyway. I just figured that this was later in the day and I didn't see it, but I'm glad I actually traded it, even though I didn't make very much from it. I think it was a step in the right direction, and I definitely need to sell in two pieces, unless it's like cutting my risk level. If I'm in a setup and it immediately fails and it breaks my risk level, I'm not going to try to sell in two pieces. That's dumb. I'm going to sell my entire position. But when it's uptrending, that's when I should try selling at two pieces, or if it's kind of working. So that's the idea with that. Let's look at the next trade, which is TXTM, and this is a VWAP breakout. A lot simpler than the other few trades. The description is much simpler. Let's look at TXTM for the 22nd. And the 22nd is going to be right here. Let me zoom out just to make the chart a little better. Right here. So, okay, this was the big ugly day that I traded a whole ton of times, but I did trade it two times before I had this huge panic. Let's look at the 22nd. And I guess I'm going to have to zoom in this chart so that the first two trades are noticeable. But just keep in mind that this thing sold off greatly much later in the day. I was in at 957 at 157. So 957 was right here, and I got in at 157, so the top right here. And why did I get in it? Again, you can see the line VWAP right here. In theory, this was a morning panic bounce play. It dropped from 17.3 as low as 14.6. It did have a bounce, and then it came back and was a higher low off of here. And then it got closer to VWAP, and then it kind of downtrended a little bit, now higher than this level. This level is higher, and then I thought in theory, okay, I'm in it right here. It's going to break past VWAP and it's going to uptrend, and it might even try to turn around and continue forward, or it could just fall off a cliff as it did right here. But that was the idea with that it was just gradually, after having this panic, put up higher lows and then break this line and then make an even nicer move towards the upside. I got out at 10:04 at 161. 10:01 or 10:04? 10:04. 10:04 was right here, and I got out at 161. I think I sold in two pieces. Maybe this was one piece, but yeah, it just didn't really offer that much move towards the upside. It didn't break this 163 level, which would have been pretty impressive. And it decided to downtrend. And let me just see if it said anything about me selling in two pieces or not. All right, I did pretty well. I did sell in two pieces, and I guess I probably thought that the uptrend here wasn't very sustainable. I think this is the one where it wasn't looking like it was going to work, especially with my entry right here. It started the downtrend, but I think like a very large bidder showed up and it kind of shot the price up, and I sold into that uptrend, thinking that it wasn't going to be sustainable. And yeah, that wasn't a bad trade for what that was, and that was a good, I guess, practice if anything. Let's look at TXTM again, which is the inverse head and shoulders, the head. Okay, trend line. Let's take a look at it. I was in at 11:11, 134. So this was later in the panic. I was in it right here at 11:11, 134. So I was in it right here. So why? I said it was the head of an inverse head and shoulder. So the idea was that this was the shoulder, this was the head right here, a kind of weird shaped head. And now I'm buying it right when it looks like it's not just going to be the head of the inverse head and shoulders, a little far from the bottom, but a little more confirmation. But at the same time, it's also breaking this line right here, this 134 level. So that's why I was in the setup for that reason, thinking that it could then try to uptrend and, you know, perhaps it downtrends and makes a shoulder, which it kind of did here, but there wasn't much range. And then that could have been another setup. So that was the idea there, and I got out at 11:17 at 1365. So 11:17 was right here, and I got out at 1365. So I probably got out right around here. This might have been an average because I think I sold in two pieces, but this was my sell, And again, my buy was right here. I didn't hold it that long. It did have one more baby downtrend, still higher than this level. So this was like a higher low, even though again there's not much volume here. And it did get to VWAP to 144, and that would have been my goal, to sell everything, unless it showed so much strong momentum that it could maybe even continue the uptrend past VWAP. But let's just see what a sell at 14 would have been, since that could have been something realistic. That would have been a lot more profitable and a really nice percent gain too. I think it wasn't bad, my attempt. You know, the thing I've been trying to do better once again is selling two pieces, but eventually I'd like to be a part of that, where maybe I already sold half and then I sell the other half, maybe not on a trend line break, but I let it in hopes that it makes a higher low from a previous level, and then it continues the uptrend for an even higher amount over a longer period of time. I haven't gotten that far yet, but that is something that I have in mind and I like to work towards. Let's look at the crazy amount of setups now, which is going to be crazy. Essentially, TXTM, this is when I was last looking at it right here, this move towards VWAP, right? And then I had that buy at 11.11. This thing later had a panic. I wish I was a part of this, because this was actually clean. And it made a nice move from like this 85-ish sub penny level as high as a penny. So that was obviously a lot of range, but I wasn't there. However, I was there when I was seeing it panic right around here, and I did traded it a ridiculous amount of times. If you want to see like more detailed information and my thoughts and new lessons learned from it, just look at the video I posted on the 22nd again. This was a pretty impressive move and something that I want to be very profitable with in the future, with the amount of times that I've seen tsunami panics like this happen. So this got to the point where I started to trade this thing back and forth right here, getting just absolutely frustrated and just, you know, making mistakes and also making progress, just trying to be profitable, thinking this was the ultimate bottom, which it was, but it was very choppy and ugly, and it did make a move much higher later on, but this was a pretty scary time, because it could have been the kind of thing where it even breaks this level and then it causes a bigger panic and it just continues to drop more. And just to go over this, it's still kind of holding on to itself. It might try to reverse over a longer period of time, but I'm not really touching it unless it does something super obvious at this point. So let's look at the first trade, which is a, in theory, morning panic bounce play, a late morning panic bounce play, lower low. This was a morning panic bounce play, which was late because it wasn't like at 9:30, although you can say this was, you know, the official one in the morning, and then it had one later. But I just considered it as being a late morning panic bounce play, and now this was being the lower low setup, because this is lower than this level, and then it can try to reverse, which again it ultimately did, as you can see, but not as nice as it could have been. It could have just immediately went towards VWAP. It didn't have to do this, you know, choppiness. But yeah, with that out of the way, there's one more thing I want to note. I did lose 8-5. As you can see, I kind of started to turn around my losses. This was like a very, I don't know, controlled chaos. You know, trading it back and forth a bunch of times. And even, again, that one setup here where I just traded a tiny $6 position. But I think, or at least I hope, God willing, if I'm in the same setup again, I can be much more profitable and trade it better. Let's look at the first one. I bought 10,000 shares, which is going to be the amount I traded on all of these except for this one, of course. I got in 10,000 shares 1:29 p.m. at 75. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in right here. 125 at 75. I got in right here. Right? 125. Let me make sure I got the right time. 129. Oh, okay. I had it wrong right here. I was in it right here at 75. Why? I probably thought that it was going to turn around and have that panic and stuff. And then it looked like it was going to actually turn around right here, and I got in at 75. As you can see, it was not the ultimate bottom, and this one kind of got me in trouble. I got out at 131 at 67, which kind of stunk, but I got out right here at 67, and I was in right here. This was the worst one, and I wanted to cut the trade right when it was looking like it was going to break the 70 level, the 70 sub penny level. Unfortunately, I didn't get filled, and then when it broke under it, I had to cancel the order, place a new order, and then I got out ultimately at 67. I didn't lose that much. It's not like it broke 70 and now we're in the 40s, but that did kind of stink that I didn't get filled at the 70 point and I lost a little more than what I wanted to. And this was a pretty bad percent loss, and that was the first attempt there. And I think it was a good attempt because again, I was risking what at the time was roughly the day low, which was the 70-ish level. The ultimate day low ended up being the 63 level. And the problem is that I did try to trade it back and forth here. I could have just bought it one more time and then cut it officially when it broke the day low here, but instead, we're gonna go over the next few trades, which was pretty crazy that I had a whole bunch. Let's look at the next one, which is now at 1:32 p.m. at 72. Right here is 1:32. I got in at 72. I thought this was going to be the kind of thing where I was going to play off of the 70 level and then it breaks it. So I cut the trade right there at 67. And then I thought, well, maybe the important level was 70. It breaks under it, causes some panic, and now it catches itself back. And now it's going to actually uptrend. I've seen it happen a few times. It didn't work out here, obviously, but I was in it at 72 for this reason. And this is a trade where I could have just held and not have cut it until it actually broke the day low here, then train it a whole bunch of more times. I got out at 134 at 67, which was this was a really dumb trade because I just essentially got in right here at 72, and then at 134 I'm like, oh no, it looks like it's going to break the day low, and I get out at 67, but then it doesn't. So that was kind of dumb. If I were again to have just held it and risked my actual day low, which would have been 65, I would have still have held the trade, and I wouldn't have again paper cut myself trading TXTM back and forth a whole bunch of times unnecessarily. I did try it right here at 139. I got in at 73. So right here I got in at 73. I probably thought the turnaround was going to be right then and there. It even had to tick to 74, and the goal to break pass would have been 75. Again, I'm in it at 73 right here at 139, and I got out the same minute for 72. So I lost this $1. I guess I didn't like it. Maybe I thought it was going to have to do it right then and there, and then when it was looking like it wasn't going to do it, I got out thinking it's going to panic pretty hard. Let me get out right before it looks like maybe the pendulum is going to shift the other direction. Again, I could have just held it from that one trade here at 72, and I wouldn't be just, trying to trade a whole bunch of times and get frustrated. But this is when I realized that, and I traded just 1,000 shares, and I thought two things. It's going to either break the day low, or it's going to get to VWAP, or it's going to close. The market's going to close. It's going to reach 4 o'clock, and it's going to be somewhere in the middle, and then I'll just cut the trade right then and there because I don't necessarily want to hold it overnight. I got in at 142 at 72. So right here, I was in at 142, and I had the thing in mind, but I didn't want to risk 10,000 shares. I just wasn't feeling my best, especially trading it back and forth a whole bunch of times. And ultimately, as you can see, it did break the day low. I got out at 145.66, which was right here. And that was fine. It did break the day low and everything. And it only got to 63 and then it turned around. But this could have been the kind of thing where it breaks the day low and it continues to panic way more. Let me get some water and I'll be back. All right, let's go over the next setup, which is going to be right here, TXTM. I traded it one more time with actual size before I did have the ultimate trade that worked out. I was in at 158 and that was at 75. So 158 was right here, and I probably got in because I thought it was going to break the 75 level that I had in mind, and then continue to make a move ideally towards VWAP. And as you can see, it had a little blip. It got to 76, but it did not work out here, and it ended up downtrending just a little before it ultimately did it. And I did get out the next minute at that 159 level right here. and this was just a break-even trade. I didn't make anything. This was the ultimate trade that worked out, and this was a different setup from all of the other ones as well. It was no longer a morning panic bounce play, a late morning panic bounce play, lower low setup. This was now an inverse head and shoulders tsunami. I've seen this a few times, and this one was one of them that worked out. I didn't trade this one as well as I could have. I could have been so much more profitable trading it, but let's go over it. I was in at 241 at 70, and 241 was right here. I got in at 70, and why? Inverse head and shoulders now. Shoulder, head, shoulder. And I thought two things again. Well, again, two or three things. It's going to break the day low and I'll cut for a loss. It's going to get to VWAP and I'll be pretty happy. Or it's going to be somewhere in the middle and I'll cut the trade before the day closes. This one got to VWAP and it got above it as well, which was super nice. I did get out eventually. I sold in two pieces at 257 and my average was 77.5. Just to confirm, yeah, that was at 257. I got out right here at 77.5. So in theory, I got in and out right here. I was out right here. Obviously a little lower than where the candle was because I sold in two pieces, but I wish I sold the second piece. The first piece was fine. I think I sold the first piece at 77, I think. I wish I sold the second piece either if it were to have broken the day low, which could have happened, or at VWAP right here, or even maybe above it if I saw that momentum was strong and it was continuously going higher. I could have made so much more on this setup, like a crazy amount more in this setup. And it looks like I did, in theory, trade the right amount of shares because at any point it could have broken the day low. I mean, at 70, it could have broken 63 and it has a quick panic to the 40s. That's very possible, but if I were to have sold the second half, I mean, this could have really been something really nice. Let me just see what would have happened if maybe I sold half at that 77 level, and then maybe I sold the other half at like 97. So let's just say, let's just be conservative and say I sold at 82 or something like that. Yeah, I could have made a lot more. And again, this thing got as high as 11, which is right here. I could have made like 50%, and this was realistic. Maybe not selling everything right at 11, but it did get to 11 and it even got above it. It wasn't like the tippy top. I've seen this set up a few times, and God willing, I can be able to trade this one again, and be like really profitable. But I think it was a step in the right direction. I just hated how I sold the second piece kind of randomly. And I mean, the only thing I had going for me was that I sold the second piece because it was right around this 80 sub penny level, and this could have been major resistance from this panic right here. But I mean, I could have just stuck to the thing where I'm going to sell that piece either if it breaks the day low or it gets to VWAP and maybe above it, or I'll just cut it again if it gets near the end of the day and it's in the middle. So yeah, a lot of move. Not a lot of move, a lot of room for improvement on TXTM. And again, God willing, I can be able to trade that better. Let's look at the next trade, which is no longer TXTM, SYXX for the 23rd. Symmetrical triangle breakout. Let's look at SYXX for the 23rd. Alright, so the 23rd is right here. First potential green day after it's, had this downtrending price action and it hasn't been doing very much. Very nice volume for the 23rd. And the 23rd is going to be, yeah, it was this thing right here. Let's go ahead and highlight it. And I got in at 1041, 297. I'll probably just zoom in a bit more, but just keep in mind that this thing did uptrend much more later. 1041 was right here, 1041, and 297. Wait, was that actually it? Oh, 10 o'clock, not 1041. 10 o'clock, 297. Okay, so way back here, yeah, 297. Why did I get in it? This was a symmetrical triangle, so I'll try to quickly draw this, but in theory, you can see how it's kind of doing it right around here. Extend that to the right. And then I guess it's going to be kind of weird to do this one. Something like this, right? You know, if you go to the day that I published, um, you know, my trading on the 23rd, you can see like the actual lines I had, but that was the idea. I was in it at 10 o'clock just because it was showing that symmetrical triangle, and it broke past the top part of it, not the bottom part, obviously. And I was in it for that reason right there at 297. I got out at 10:05, 3:05, so 10:05 was right here when I got out of everything, and my average was 3:05, so I got out right here. I mean, it did work, right? It did uptrend, but it didn't do anything spectacular. It didn't break 32. It didn't, you know, then try to break the day high or anything like that. But it did do something. It just didn't offer that much opportunity. And that was a pretty good trade for what it was. I think good practice nonetheless. And there's going to be another symmetrical triangle breakout that actually ended up being much more profitable, I believe. Let's look at the next trade, which is SYXX, resistance breakout towards high and day. I was in at 1039, 303. So 1039 was right here. 303. Why did I get in? I felt like the resistance level was this 3 cents level, which was pretty important throughout the day. And my idea was that it's going to break the level of 3 cents and then try to continue to get higher. Maybe again break the 32 level, try to get to the day high. I mean, as you can see, it did get to 31, but it didn't do it here. And it did uptrend much later throughout the day. As you can see, it eventually broke the 3 cent level. Right around here is the 3 cent level, and it got way higher. I mean, going from 3 to 4, that's like a 30% move towards the upside, right? And it even got to 4.5 right at the I guess not there exactly, but pretty close to it right at the day close. It just didn't work out when I first tried it, way back here when it got past the 3 cent level. I got out at 1046, 3032, so I barely broke even on this one. 1046 is when I got out, which was right here. And I was giving it a chance. I wanted it to work out, but again, I'm in it right around here at this, what was it again? The 1040s, 1039. 1039 right here, you know, and I did get out ultimately here. I gave it time, but it was uptrending. But as you can see, the bottoms of the candles was not uptrending. It was kind of hanging around this 3 cent level. And what was going on is that there was a lot of people dumping their shares throughout the entire time at the bid, and the bid would not be able to uptrend, or whenever it would, so people would dump their shares at the bid, and then it would go back to the 3 cent level. While the ask would lift up because there were people hitting the ask. And then you can see a whole bunch of volume was dumped here, and I was like, is it done? Like, is that big seller out of the way, I guess? Was that his final blow and now it can uptrend? Well, it continued to downtrend, and when it broke under the 3 cent level that I was very particular about, I got out of the other position for a loss, and I ended up being, again, slightly profitable at 3032, but clearly I wanted it to work out, and it didn't. It had to drop, but again, at least I was on the right track because just to go over it once again, it did eventually do the thing I wanted it to. So this was a good example of me being on the right track, and you know, who knows how I would have traded it eventually here, but at least I tried it when I first saw the setup working for the very first time, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. So let's go ahead and remove these trend lines and look at the next setup. This is going to be TXTM, a morning panic bounce, play lower low. Let's look at TXTM for the 23rd. A little sketchy, but this was trading it the next day after the big panic day. The 23rd is going to be right here. Let's just zoom in from the half point. I was in at 1103.69, sub penny 69. 1103. Just wanted to make sure because that's kind of late right here. Right here, I was in it at 69, and why was I in it? In theory, the morning panic bounce play was here. You know, drops from this 88 level as low as the 70s. it did bounce and get as high as 87. So this one worked out, although it was a big choppy mess. In the future, I'd like to trade something like this because even though it was frustrating and choppy, the overall pattern was there. And I've seen ugly things like this work out more often than not when it has like a morning panic bounce play and it has like a quick dip, not a quick dip, a quick spike to VWAP, and then it comes back. But then it eventually gets past the VWAP line, which is what this one did. And now I was in it right here because I thought this was going to be like the lower low. The bottom was 70, and then it kind of broke it briefly, and it got to 69, and that's when I was in it. It didn't work out when I was in it, but it did work out at the very next one. I got out at 11:11, 7125. Right here's when I got out ultimately at 7125. So maybe around right here was my average. And it did get to this level. It just wasn't able to break 72. It broke it one more time right here. And then this was ultimately the thing where it got to, you can say, 69 again, and it did get to VWAP, which was 75. So let's just see what a sell at 73 would have been, because that could have been realistic. Yeah, that would have been a nice 5% gain. But I still tried it. It just didn't work when I got in, but I was on the right track because it did work out the next one. And while it didn't really touch VWAP, it got to it. Obviously, best case scenario would get above it as well, but that wasn't the case here. Wow, my voice is really starting to die. Let's look at the next trade, which is SYXX on the 24th. Morning range breakout. Let's look at SYXX for the 24th. Okay, so the 24th is right here. Essentially the second day after the first uptrending day, they had more volume. In theory, maybe it could try to run for multiple days. That wasn't really the case. Or I guess it could still be the case, actually. We're only the next day, the potential third day tomorrow on Monday. So let's go ahead and look at the 24th, which is right here. And I'll probably just stick to this because I think this was a very quick trade in the morning. I was in it at 931 at 494. So right here at 931, I was in it at 494. Why did I get in it? This could have been the second potential day, and I think this was on a gap up, which wasn't too ideal, but it at least means that if it trades in a range while it's on a gap up and it breaks past it, it could be something nice. But I prefer not to be a gap up on the second day. I would have liked it if it were to try to break the tippy top of the first green day, and then that could be a setup. But essentially, as you can see, it was trading around this 49 level for a little bit. I mean, I'll count this candle right here before the market opened, and when it broke past it, I got in it, and I thought it could also try to break 5 cents ideally, and then it can try to be a really nice morning spike, and that could be a really profitable setup. I did get out at 933, and my average was 52.15. So right here, I got out at 52.15, right? Yeah, that was my average. So I actually had a few good sells. 52.15 doesn't even really show up right here, but that was essentially the setup that I had right there. And yeah, I sold because I just didn't like the price action, too much topping action, and that's what it ended up doing. It broke back under it, got below VWAP, and it had a dip as low as the 38.9 level, which would have been pretty bad if I was going to be hard-headed and not sell when I was supposed to when I see the topping price action here, especially on a potential morning spike on top of a gap up. So I think I traded this one pretty well, and I didn't do anything dumb. Let's look at the next trade, which was my most profitable trade in terms of percentage. PPCB, this was a bull flag. Let's look at PPCB for the 24th. If I could type it. Right here is the 24th. Kind of reminds me of SYXX, something that's been downtrending for a long time. And then we have this first day right here with a whole bunch of volume. Let's go ahead and highlight this day. I was in it at 953, almost 954 at 46. So right here, 953, I was in at 46, was just it was a pretty good entry. And why did I get in this? Again, I saw a bull flag, so it had an uptrend, and then it had a downtrend, and the bottom of the ideal bull flag was roughly this VWAP level, and I was in it for that reason. I saw potential in that it could try to do the bull flag thing, and this one actually did turn out to be pretty profitable. I got out at 957. My average was 53.5, so 957, 50, what was it? Just to be sure, 53.5. Yeah, so clearly I sold in two pieces, but I was essentially out right here, and I had my second piece sold right here. It did downtrend, but it was in theory a higher low off of this level. There was just a wick right here at 47, when previously it was two candle, like official candles, not the wick, which was a sign that maybe this could be a higher low. And then this did make an uptrend, and I regret missing out on this one because this was the symmetrical triangle that I mentioned previously that ended up really working. I didn't trade it, but you can in theory say this was a symmetrical triangle. Again, nothing really perfect. And then something like this. I don't really remember how I had it anymore, but this was pretty nice because it did break the symmetrical triangle. And that was super nice again because it went from the 52 or the 55s. I think I was interested in it at worst case scenario 56, and it did get as high as 68. This was very profitable. I did miss out on this one, but if I see this again, I'm gonna have more conviction and more confidence to try to tackle it and trade it. And ideally it can work then and there and be profitable as well. Let's look at the very last setup. And my voice arrived. PPCB, the same stock, the same day, but now this was a head and shoulder long. So this was a long setup despite the fact that I said head and shoulders. Saying why? I'll go over it. I was in at 1044 at 52.35. So 1044 was right here. 1044 at this 52.35 level. So I was in it right here. And why was I in this setup? Well, pretty simple. Head and shoulders. Shoulder, head, and then this ended up being the shoulder and then it downtrends. But I was in it like between the point when it has the dip after making the head and then before it makes the shoulder. So I thought I could be in it on the dip and then sell into a shoulder. Best case scenario, it's going to not be a shoulder but break the day high and continue the option. But that wasn't the case there. It had a little baby shoulder. As you can see, it wasn't even like, you know, as high as 64 as the other shoulder was. It got to 57. Not much range, not much volume, but the setup was there and I traded it. It could have really have worked out. It didn't in this case, which was fine, but that was the case. I got out at 1054 at 535. So 1054 was right here when I got out everything, and 535. So I was out pretty much around right here. I sold in two pieces, so you know, it means I didn't sell everything here, but I think I sold one piece like before it was starting to work at 53 something, and then I sold the other piece right here. Again, it didn't work out, but it could have worked out. And it could have been super profitable, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just didn't work out once again. Or at least, I guess it did work out. It just was a baby shoulder. It didn't just immediately continue the downtrend and keep failing, which could have been something. But yeah, that's really about it. A lot of potential. I was on the right track with a few setups. I was on the right track, and I didn't trade the actual thing that could have worked out, like this move right here, the symmetrical triangle. A lot of room for improvement. Pretty good overall in that I just learned a lot of good lessons. And yeah, God willing, we can get another TXTM panic. Not the same stock probably, but another one. And I could be much more profitable in that one and trade much better. That's all I have for this weekly recap.